Hermione Granger is the character that J.K. Rowling identifies with the most.
But Hermione is an exaggeration of me. So Hermione really did come from a very deep place inside me.
Even Hermione's Patronus, an otter, is Rowling's favorite animal. Rowling put so much passion behind each and every character in the Harry Potter series, but I think that she put the most behind Hermione, simply because it was her way of putting herself into this incredible world that she had created.
Well, Hermione, you really are the brightest witch of your age I've ever met.
Hermione is one of my personal favorite characters, and many of yours as well, as I have had more requests to make a video about her than any other character. Now, because Hermione is one of the 3 main characters, there's a lot to go over, so I guess you could kind of consider this to be a video about the trio, as well as Ron and Hermione's relationship. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I explain the life of Hermione Granger. Hermione was born to Mr. and Mrs. Granger. Both of her parents were muggles, and both were dentists. The two picked the unusual name Hermione, partly to prove how smart and clever they were, the name deriving from Shakespeare, but also because they knew that their daughter was going to be unique and special, and they wanted a name that would reflect that. The family often took trips to the Forest of Dean, where they went camping. They also went to Shaftesbury Avenue, where they would go to the theater pretty often. Hermione had a room on the first floor of their house. She often had weird things happen around her that no one could explain. She attended Muggle school for many years and was a very bright student. One day, a Hogwarts staff member, most likely Professor McGonagall, visited Hermione and her family at their house and explained that Hermione was a witch selected by the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance, 2 objects that write down a person's name as soon as they show their first signs of magic. Both the book and the quill have to agree that they have enough magic in them to become a fully fledged witch or wizard. When the weird things that Hermione would make happen occurred, she was using magic, and the book and quill realized that she was capable of becoming a witch. Most students just got a letter sent to them asking them to come to Hogwarts, but because Hermione was a Muggle-born and neither she nor her parents knew about the Wizarding World, she had someone explain it to her in person. When Professor McGonagall, who was most likely the one that visited her, showed up at her house, she told him all about the Wizarding World, Hogwarts, and explained Hermione's powers. McGonagall told her family how to get to Diagon Alley, and later the family went to get school supplies. This was the first glimpse of the Wizarding World that Hermione had ever gotten. She bought the books that she needed for class, as well as a few others, a wand from Ollivander's, robes, and other school supplies. Hermione read all of the books that she had gotten, both for her classes and other books she had picked up to learn more about the Wizarding World. She learned all of the spell books by heart, and even managed to perform a few simple spells, something that is very unheard of, as most need instruction and a lot of time to be able to channel their magic. From a young age, it was clear that Hermione was a very powerful witch. On the train ride to Hogwarts, she met Neville Longbottom, who asked her to help him find his toad. While she was looking, she met Ron and Harry. When it was time to be sorted, the sorting hat seriously considered putting her in Ravenclaw, the house known to have the most intelligent students. But the hat thought that her bravery, a trait the Gryffindors had, was more significant than her intelligence. Hermione was a very gifted student and always outshined her classmates.
Oh, well done! See here, everyone. Miss Granger's done it!
She did, however, struggle with her flying lessons, unable to make her broom come to her hand as it was supposed to, but merely roll over on the ground. Hermione strictly followed the rules. When she overheard Ron and Harry talking about sneaking out to duel Malfoy, she stepped in. You mustn't go wandering around the school at night. Think of the points you'll lose for Gryffindor if you're caught. Hermione almost told Ron's brother Percy, who was a prefect on them, but she decided to confront them before they left. She followed them out of the portrait hole, which closed behind them, forcing her to go with them. It turned out to be a setup by Malfoy, and they ran through the forbidden corridor, where they came face to face with Fluffy, a 3-headed dog. After the incident, Hermione was the only one that realized that the dog was guarding a trap door.
It was standing on a trap door, which means it wasn't there by accident. It's guarding something.
One day, Hermione overheard Ron making fun of her.
She's a nightmare, honestly. No wonder she hasn't got any friends.
She bumped into Harry and went into the bathroom where she cried all day. She told Pravati that she wanted to be left alone, and she didn't go to the Halloween feast. During the feast, a troll was led into the school, and Ron and Harry realized that Hermione didn't know about it and that she was in danger. They went to find her, and the 3 ended up facing the troll and knocking it out. When it fell, there was a loud bang that shook the floor, which alerted the professors where they were. When the professors arrived, Hermione did something that neither Ron nor Harry saw coming. She told a lie to a teacher.
It's my fault, Professor McGonagall. I went looking for the troll. If Harry and Ron hadn't come and found me, I'd probably be dead.
Hermione, taking the blame for them, changed her relationship with Ron and Harry. From that moment on, Hermione Granger became their friend. Hermione was a great friend to the two of them. She helped them with their homework, although she never let them copy, and was always there for them. One day, Hermione thought that Snape was jinxing Harry's broom during a Quidditch match, so she snuck behind him and caught his robes on fire, which ended up freeing Harry from the jinx as it distracted Professor Quirrell, who was really the one jinxing the broom. The trio eventually became very interested in what the three-headed dog Fluffy was guarding. When Hagrid let slip that Nicholas Flamel had something to do with it, the three researched tirelessly, trying to find out what he was involved with. Hermione eventually remembered a book that she had checked out weeks before.
I checked this out weeks ago for a bit of light reading.
This is light.
In the book, she discovered that the thing Fluffy was guarding was the Philosopher's Stone. Later that year, Hagrid got a dragon, and it became more than he could handle. They devised a plan where Hermione and Harry would take the dragon to the top tower of the castle and give it to Charlie Weasley's friends who worked with dragons. Hermione and Harry succeeded in getting the dragon out, but they were caught out of bed at night and lost their house 50 points each. They became some of the most hated people in the school after that. No one would speak to Hermione, and she stopped drawing attention to herself in class. Getting caught also led to them getting detention in the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. When the trio realized that the Philosopher's Stone was in danger from Voldemort, they decided to tail the man that they thought was after it, Professor Snape. They decided that Hermione was the one that should keep watch on them. The reasoning being that if she got caught, she could just pretend to be worried about her final exam with Professor Flitwick. When Snape came out and asked her what she was doing, she told him that she was waiting for Professor Flitwick. Snape went in to get Flitwick, and Hermione lost sight of him. Hearing that Snape got away, Harry said that he was going down the trap door, and Hermione and Ron refused to let him go alone. When Harry said that they would be expelled if they were caught, Hermione said, "Not if I can help it. Flitwick told me in secret that I got 112% on his exam. They're not throwing me out after that." She then went to read her books before they went, in case there was something useful in them that they could use. As they were leaving, they were stopped by Neville Longbottom in the common room, who Hermione was forced to cast a spell on. When they went down the trap door, they landed on Devil's Snare, a plant that wrapped itself around them. Hermione remembered that to stop them, she had to start a fire. Yes, of course. But there's no wood. Have you gone mad? Are you a witch or not? Oh, right. She waved her wand and freed them all. They went through a few more obstacles to get to the stone, one of which knocked Ron out. Harry and Hermione continued and got to a potions obstacle. Hermione realized that it wasn't magic that you needed to get past this, but logic, which made her smile. There were 7 bottles. One would get you through to the next obstacle, and one would let you go back the opposite way. There was only enough for one person to go on to the next obstacle. Harry told Hermione to go back while he went on. As they were saying goodbye, Hermione's lip trembled and she hugged Harry. Then she said,
You're a great wizard.
While Harry went on, Hermione went back to get Ron and used a broomstick from another obstacle to escape out the trapdoor. She then sent Dumbledore a letter telling him what was going on. At the end of the year feast, Dumbledore awarded Hermione 50 points.
To Miss Hermione Granger for the cool use of intellect, while others were in grave peril.
This helped Gryffindor win the House Cup, something that they had not done in years. Hermione finished the school year with the best grades of all of the first years. When they arrived back at King's Cross, Hermione was shocked at how awful Harry's aunt and uncle were. That summer, when Hermione and Ron both sent letters to Harry, and neither got responses thanks to Dobby intercepting his mail, they got worried. Ron told Hermione that he was going to rescue Harry from the Dursleys, and she told him to be careful and not to break any laws. Hermione went to Diagon Alley the same day that Ron and Harry were going with the rest of the Weasleys. She was accompanied by her parents. Her parents exchanged Muggle money for wizarding money at Gringotts. Hermione and her parents met Ron, Harry, and the Weasleys at Flourish and Blotts, where Gilderoy Lockhart was signing autographs. Hermione was very excited to meet him, as he had written a number of books on the book list for school, and also because he was very handsome. Mr. Weasley was talking avidly to Hermione's parents before Lucius Malfoy came in. He looked over at the Grangers and said to Arthur, "The company you keep, Weasley. And I thought your family could sink no lower." When Hermione got on the Hogwarts Express, she was very confused where Ron and Harry were, as they had never boarded. When she found out that they had taken a flying car to school, she was very disapproving. When the Gryffindor and Slytherin Quidditch teams had an altercation, Hermione and Ron came over to see what was going on. When Hermione said that Malfoy had bought his way to become a member of the team, he called her a mudblood.
No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood.
Hermione didn't know what this meant, but knew it was bad based on the reactions of everyone around her. Ron pulled out his wand in defense of Hermione and shot a spell at Malfoy, but it shot back at himself due to his wand being broken. Ron and Hagrid explained to Hermione what mudblood meant and how it was the most offensive thing you could call a Muggleborn. When Hermione went to her first Defense Against the Dark Arts class with Gilderoy Lockhart, she got a perfect score on a quiz that was all about himself.
Hardly any of you remembered that my favorite color is lilac. But Miss Hermione Granger knew that my secret ambition is to rid the world of evil and market my own range of hair care potions.
It was clear that she had a big crush on him, just like every other girl in the wizarding world, which annoyed both Harry and Ron. On Halloween, Hermione along with Ron and Harry went to Nearly Headless Nick's death day party, where a bunch of ghosts celebrated the day he died. He had the trio talk him up in order to get invited to the Headless Hunt. That year, the Chamber of Secrets had been opened, and many students were petrified. After the first attack, Hermione asked Professor Binns about the Chamber of Secrets during their History of Magic class. He told them the story about how Salazar Slytherin had made a secret chamber in the castle, and it housed a monster. The trio was convinced that Malfoy was the culprit opening the chamber. To find out, they made Polyjuice Potion, a task that even challenged Hermione.
I've never seen a more complicated potion.
Hermione had accidentally put a cat hair in the potion instead of a human hair, and she was forced to stay in the hospital wing for several weeks. Harry and Ron visited her every evening and brought her the homework for the day, something that they both admitted that they would not do had they been in her situation. Later that year, Hermione figured out what the monster in the chamber was. She knew it was a basilisk and that it was traveling through the pipes. She went to the library, tore out a page from the book, and wrote pipes on it. She used a mirror when she was rounding corners and told Penelope Clearwater to do the same right before they both made eye contact with the beast. But because they didn't look directly in its eyes, but rather through the mirror, they were just petrified. She was in that state for the rest of the term, but she helped Harry and Ron when they found the page she ripped out of the book in her hand. She was eventually unpetrified with the rest of the students thanks to Professor Sprout's mandrakes. Hermione ran to Harry and Ron screaming, "You solved it! You solved it!" Hermione, Harry, and the Weasleys got a compartment together for the train ride home and made the most of their last few hours of using magic. That summer, Hermione went to France with her parents. She enjoyed it and said that she had learned a lot. For Harry's birthday, she got him a broomstick servicing kit, something that he loved. The day before they left for Hogwarts, Hermione's parents dropped her off at the Leaky Cauldron with all of her school stuff so that she could spend the night there and go with Harry and the Weasleys the next morning. After they dropped her off, she and Ron went into Diagon Alley where they met Harry. Hermione's parents had given her money to buy an early birthday present, and she decided to buy a cat named Crookshanks. Minutes before she bought it, it had jumped on Ron while he was holding his rat Scabbers. When she came out with it, Ron said, "You bought that monster?" Third years were allowed to pick more new subjects, and Hermione picked more than anyone. She had actually picked so many classes that they weren't able to fit into a normal schedule. When they arrived at Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall had Hermione come to her office during the sorting. There she gave her a time turner so that she would be able to go back in time and be able to take all of the courses that she had signed up for. McGonagall made her promise that she wouldn't tell anyone about it, including Harry and Ron, which made them very confused at times.
Hang on, that's not possible. Ancient runes is on the same time as divination. You have to be in two classes at once.
During divination, Hermione was startled when Professor Trelawney said that books wouldn't help her in this class. She then said to Hermione that she didn't have the right aura. She immediately disliked both Trelawney and the subject. If being good at divination means I have to pretend to see death omens in a lump of tea leaves, I'm not sure I'll be studying it much longer. That lesson was absolute rubbish. In their first Care of Magical Creatures lesson, Draco got attacked by Buckbeak the Hippogriff.
He has to be taken to the hospital.
When Harry anonymously got a firebolt broomstick, Hermione got worried that it was from Sirius Black, who everyone believed to be after Harry. She told Professor McGonagall about it, who to the fury of Harry and Ron, confiscated the broom to examine it. Ron and Harry were very upset with Hermione for this. Later on, Ron accused Crookshanks of eating his rat Scabbers. These two things turned Harry and Ron against Hermione, and they didn't talk for a while. Because of this, Hermione committed herself to helping Hagrid in his defense of Buckbeak so that he wouldn't be sentenced to death for hurting Malfoy. She spent hours researching for him. Hagrid told Ron and Harry that putting a broomstick over Hermione was stupid, especially considering the fact that they had gotten it back. The three became friends again when they all apologized to one another. Ron and Harry then started helping to do research for Buckbeak as well. However, they ended up losing the case because Lucius Malfoy threatened all of the committee members into siding with him. When Malfoy started making fun of Hagrid for crying about Buckbeak, all three of the trio made a furious move toward Malfoy, but Hermione got there first and smacked him across the face with all of her strength. She then took out her wand. "Don't you dare call Hagrid pathetic! You foul! You evil!"
Hermione, no! He's not worth it.
Malfoy then ran off very disoriented. When Snape took over as Defense Against the Dark Arts professor for Lupin, he taught a lesson on werewolves, and Hermione was the only one to realize that Professor Lupin was a werewolf himself. She did not expose him, however, as she thought that he was the best Defense Against the Dark Arts professor that they had ever had. Later that term, Hermione dropped divination when Trelawney said that she couldn't remember meeting a student whose mind was so hopelessly mundane. Later, the trio went down to Hagrid's before Buckbeak's execution. After they left, they discovered the truth about Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Scabbers, aka Peter Pettigrew, and how Peter was guilty while Sirius was innocent. Everything went to hell when Lupin transformed into a werewolf, and Sirius was captured by Dementors and locked away in one of the tallest towers in the castle, awaiting the Dementors' kiss. Dumbledore gave Hermione permission to use the Time Turner to save both Buckbeak and Sirius. Both Harry and Hermione freed Buckbeak and used him to get to Sirius's tower. They sent Sirius off with Buckbeak, saving and freeing both of them. Hermione once again passed all of her exams with top marks. After having such a huge course load the past year, she decided to drop Muggle studies so that she would have a normal course load after dropping divination earlier in the term as well. The following summer, Hermione visited the Weasleys so that she could go to the Quidditch World Cup with them. They sat in the minister's box with Cornelius Fudge himself. While visiting the Weasleys, Hermione became very close with Ginny as they shared a room at the Burrow and a tent at the World Cup. She gave her advice on Harry, who Ginny had liked for a very long time. During the match, Hermione met her first house elf, Winky, who worked for Barty Crouch. She was appalled that her master made her stay up in the box when she was terrified of heights. During the match, she also watched Victor Krum play, the Seeker for Bulgaria. After the match, ex-Death Eaters attacked, and the trio fled to the woods around the campsite. They saw Malfoy, who warned Hermione to be careful, saying that they wouldn't show mercy to a mudblood. While they were there, they heard a deep voice say, "More murder!" And the dark mark was cast into the sky. Ministry officials showed up at that spot and shot stunning spells at them. They eventually realized that it wasn't the trio, and the stunning spells that they had shot went behind them and hit Winky the house elf. Hermione tried to stand up for Winky to the Ministry agents, but they refused to listen. When Crouch said that he was giving Winky clothes, meaning he was freeing her, she broke down crying, and Hermione pleaded with Crouch. Crouch looked directly at Hermione and said, "I have no use for a servant who forgets what is due to her master." That night deeply affected Hermione and made her want to help house elves. While at Hogwarts, she started SPEW, which stands for the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare. She gave out badges in the Gryffindor common room in return for them donating a bit to the foundation. Her goals for the foundation were to secure house elves fair wages and good working conditions. She also wanted to get an elf into the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures because of how shockingly underrepresented they were. She did a ton of research and found out that elf enslavement went back centuries, and she couldn't believe that no one had done anything about it. Ron then told her that that was because they liked to be enslaved, which Hermione ignored. She made Ron treasurer and Harry secretary of the organization, and they only went along with it to get her to stop talking about it. While she was recruiting by giving out badges in exchange for 2 sickles, Hagrid, Fred, and George refused to join, saying it would only upset the house elves. They were quite right, as her campaigning was unwanted by the elves that worked at Hogwarts. When the trio went to visit the Hogwarts kitchens, where all of the house elves worked, Hermione found out that Winky had gotten a job there, and as did Dobby. Winky said that she was ashamed of being freed, as all house elves should. Hermione then said that Crouch should be the one that's ashamed, which deeply offended Winky. When Hermione said that Dobby was an example and role model of a free elf that others should strive to become, all of the elves in the kitchen scouted both Hermione and Dobby in disgust. That year, the Triwizard Tournament was held, and 2 schools joined them to compete in the tournament. One of them was Durmstrang. The champion for Durmstrang was Victor Krum, the Bulgarian seeker Hermione watched play at the Quidditch World Cup. He took an interest in Hermione because of her intelligence, unconventional beauty, and because she didn't hound him for autographs the way other girls did. He followed her around the grounds, mostly in the library because that's where she spent most of her time. Hermione was annoyed at this because he brought with him snickering girls that disrupted the peace of the library. Harry was also chosen as a champion for the tournament, and Hermione was the only one that believed that he didn't put his name in the Goblet of Fire. She accepted his story without question, even when Ron didn't. Hermione's life became a lot harder, as she had to go back and forth between Ron and Harry, who were fighting. One day, when Harry and Hermione showed up to potions, Malfoy and Harry started going at it. They each took out their wands, and Malfoy's spell ricocheted toward Hermione, and her front teeth began to grow at an alarming rate. When Snape arrived, and Ron told him what had happened, Snape looked at Hermione and said, I see no difference. Hermione let out a whimper, her eyes filled with tears, and she ran off. Hermione didn't come to dinner that night as her teeth were being put back to normal, while Madame Pomfrey was shrinking them back down. She held up a mirror and told Hermione to tell her when they were back to normal. Hermione made her go a little longer than she was supposed to, making her normally buck teeth look much more normal. She noted that her parents wouldn't approve, as they were dentists and didn't think that teeth and magic should go together. When Rita Skeeter wrote an article about Harry, she incorporated a part that said that Harry and Hermione were romantically interested in one another. Hermione helped Harry prepare for the first task of the Triwizard Tournament. She helped him master the summoning spell. This way he could call his broomstick to him and get past the dragon. Harry got top marks in the task thanks to Hermione's help. Ron and Harry began talking again, which made Hermione's life much easier.
Boys.
What came with the Triwizard Tournament was the Yule Ball. After following her around for months, Victor Krum finally worked up the courage to go up to Hermione and ask her to the ball, which she said yes to. Hermione didn't tell anyone that she was asked by Krum, except for Ginny, who she had become close with over the past summer. Ron and Harry had trouble finding dates, and Ron asked Hermione as a last resort.
I won't be going alone because, believe it or not, someone's asked me.
At some point during their time together, Hermione and Victor snogged, which was Hermione's first kiss. Hermione walked into the ball with the champions next to Krum. She didn't look like Hermione at all. Her hair was no longer bushy, but sleek and shiny, and twisted into an elegant knot in the back of her head. She was smiling nervously, and the reduction of the size in her teeth was more noticeable than ever. The whole room was not only in shock that Krum had chosen her as a date, but also how beautiful Hermione looked. She had a great time at the ball, talking and dancing with Victor all night. The end of the ball, however, wasn't that great, as a jealous Ron told her off, and the two got in a big fight.
Next time there's a ball, pluck up the courage and ask me before somebody else does.
The next morning, the two acted like nothing had happened, and were very friendly to one another. For the second task, the champions had to retrieve the thing that they would miss most in the lake, and for Krum, that was Hermione. After he rescued her and brought her to the surface, he said that he had never felt this way about any other girl, and he invited her to visit him in Bulgaria over the summer. Rita Skeeter wrote an article that quoted this conversation and made her out to be the bad guy that broke Harry's heart. She got a lot of hate mail for this, one of which squirted liquid on her that made her hands erupt with large yellow boils. Hermione, now angry, decided to figure out how Rita Skeeter was able to hear that conversation between her and Victor. One day, she saw a beetle on the windowsill in the hospital wing. She noticed that it had markings around her eyes, just like Rita Skeeter's glasses. She captured her and put her in a glass jar that she put an unbreakable charm on so that she couldn't transform back to a human. She told Rita that she would release her once she got off the train in London, and she said that if she didn't keep her quill to herself, then she would reveal her secret that she was an unregistered animagus. I've told her to keep her quill to herself for a whole year, see if she can't break the habit of writing horrible lies about people. After the death of Cedric Diggory and the return of Lord Voldemort, Hermione along with Ron were there for Harry as he dealt with the trauma of seeing both the death of Cedric and the rebirth of Voldemort. On the train ride home, Hermione told the others about capturing Rita Skeeter, and they were all very impressed. When she got off at platform 9 3/4, she released Skeeter and warned her one last time not to write any articles, or she would reveal her secret and turn her over to the authorities. That summer, Hermione went to number 12 Grimmauld Place for the end of the holiday. This was the headquarters for the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore's alliance to fight Voldemort and his Death Eaters. Dumbledore refused to allow Hermione and Ron to be in contact with Harry.
We've gone all summer without a scrap of news.
We wanted to write, mate. Really, we did.
Only what?
Only Dumbledore made us swear not to tell you anything.
When Harry arrived, he found out that the Ministry had turned on him and said that he was lying about Voldemort returning. Both Hermione and Ron stood by him and believed everything that he said. Before the start of term, Hermione found out that she was made a prefect, along with Ron. While at Hogwarts, Hermione continued to push SPEW, but was much less intense than the previous year. She started knitting clothes that she put around the common room, hoping that a house elf cleaning would pick it up and be free. The clothes were disappearing every night, and she got excited, but it turned out that Dobby was the one taking all of the clothes, and was now the only one cleaning the common room. Their new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Dolores Umbridge, a ministry agent who was working directly for Fudge, told the students that they didn't need to learn the actual spells, but just the theories of them. She didn't allow them to use wands in class, and instead just made them read the books. Hermione, knowing that they were in real danger now that Voldemort had returned, arranged a meeting to start a club. This club involved Harry teaching students real defense against the dark arts behind Umbridge's back. They called it Dumbledore's Army. The lessons went very well and brought all of the kids in the club together. During one lesson, Hermione learned to make a proper Patronus, and she discovered that it took the form of an otter. Hermione gave each member a coin that she had put a complicated spell on to communicate with everyone. The coin would tell them when and where the meetings would be. Hermione remained in contact with Victor Krum, and one night wrote a very long letter to him that Ron described as a novel. After that, Ron didn't say anything, but looked disgruntled. Harry and the Weasleys left the school abruptly, leaving Hermione behind. This was because Mr. Weasley was attacked by Voldemort's snake Nagini. Hermione went home for Christmas holiday and was supposed to go skiing with her parents, but bailed at the last minute, saying that skiing wasn't for her. Her parents were disappointed, but they understood. She took the night bus to number 12 Grimmauld Place where the others were, and spent Christmas there. When they arrived back at school, Hermione set up a meeting with Harry, Luna Lovegood, and Rita Skeeter. Hermione blackmailed Skeeter with her secret of being an unregistered animagus. She had Rita write an article where Harry explained what had happened the night that Cedric died and Voldemort returned, and she asked Luna if they could feature the article in her dad's magazine, The Quibbler. The article was a huge success, and many people who didn't believe Harry before now believed him. Later that year, Dumbledore's army was compromised because a member of the club named Marietta had ratted them out to Umbridge. Marietta regretted this immediately because Hermione had jinxed the paper that everyone signed to make anyone that snitched on them have the word sneak written on their face in pimples. Marietta had those pimples for many years, as they could not find a counter curse to fix it, no matter how hard they tried, showing just how powerful Hermione's jinxing ability is. Fifth years were required to take ALD exams, and Hermione took a whopping 10, while most people only took around 7. She got the top grade, outstanding, in 9 of them, and got the second highest grade, exceeds expectations, in Defense Against the Dark Arts, which she was very disappointed about. Harry got a vision of Sirius being tortured in the Department of Mysteries, and he was desperate to save him. Hermione suggested that they contact Sirius before they make their move to make sure that it's not a trap. Ginny and Luna kept watch as Ron lured Umbridge away, and Harry and Hermione went to Umbridge's office to call Sirius using her fireplace. Unfortunately, they were all caught by Malfoy and the rest of Umbridge's inquisitorial squad. When Umbridge was about to use the Cruciatus Curse on Harry, Hermione yelled and came up with a lie that lured Umbridge into the Forbidden Forest. There, Umbridge was carried away by a herd of centaurs. They met up with the others, who had escaped from the inquisitorial squad courtesy of Ron, which impressed Hermione.
That was clever, Ron.
That's been known to happen.
They all rode Thestrals to the Ministry of Magic. When they got there, Hermione had turned out to be right. It was a trap. They were confronted by multiple Death Eaters, including Bellatrix Lestrange and Lucius Malfoy. They fought back, and a battle started. Hermione stunned one of the Death Eaters to free Harry from his grip. She stunned another Death Eater and silenced Dolohov before he could alert the other Death Eaters to the group's location. Dolohov then hit her with a spell that injured her pretty badly. Luckily, after the battle, she made a full recovery. She spent most of the following summer at her parents' house, but at the end of the summer, she stayed at the Weasleys. When Harry got there, he told Hermione and Ron that Dumbledore was giving him lessons, and that Dumbledore said to confide in the two of them. Hermione was invited to the new potion professor Horace Slughorn's Slug Club, where he invited the brightest and most likely to be successful students to multiple dinners and parties throughout the year. At this point in time, it was clear that Hermione had developed romantic feelings for Ron. At the Quidditch tryouts, Hermione cheated by making Cormac McLaggen, Ron's competition, move out of the way when the Quaffle came toward him. This subsequently made Ron get the position of keeper for Gryffindor. Ron was a bit upset that both Hermione and Harry had gotten invites to the Slug Club and he didn't. He cheered up a bit though when Hermione asked him to Slughorn's Christmas party. Later on, however, he got into a fight with Ginny, and she told him that Hermione had kissed Victor Krum, and Ron started to act coldly toward Hermione after that. Before their Quidditch match, Harry tricked both Ron and Hermione into thinking that he had put liquid luck into Ron's drink. Ron played incredibly, but Hermione got mad at both of them for cheating. When Harry revealed that he had never actually given him the liquid luck, Ron got mad at Hermione and said that she had no faith in his abilities. After the match, Ron kissed Lavender Brown, which deeply upset Hermione. She sent angry birds after Ron when he and Lavender burst in on Harry comforting her. She had thought that they were going to Slughorn's Christmas party together and was hurt when he instead started a relationship with Lavender, although she pretended not to care.
Was I under the impression he and I would be attending Slughorn's Christmas party together? Yes. I really couldn't care less.
The two fought for a long time. In one Transfiguration class, Ron accidentally gave himself a handlebar mustache, which Hermione laughed at hysterically. Ron shot back by doing a cruel impression of Hermione jumping up and down in her seat every time a professor asked her a question, which made Lavender and Pravati laugh at her. To make Ron jealous, she asked Cormac McLaggen to the party, the person who Ron had to compete against in the Quidditch tryouts, and who he despised. Hermione ended up having a terrible time and tried to avoid him all night. Ron also started to have a horrible time with Lavender, as he found her very annoying. He attempted to speak to Hermione, but she ignored him, still upset with him for his treatment of her before. Hermione completely changed her attitude toward Ron when he was poisoned. Hermione was frightened and upset about this. When she was at his bedside with the others, she talked for the first time. Ron heard her voice and started to say her name in his sleep.
Oh,
Ron looked forward to Hermione's visits to the hospital wing and pretended to be asleep whenever Lavender came. After he was released, Ron began ignoring Lavender, and she began to get suspicious of his relationship with Hermione. When she saw Hermione and Ron come out of the boys' dormitories, unable to see Harry, who was under the invisibility cloak, she broke up with Ron, and Harry could have sworn that he saw Hermione smirk. Hermione and Ron were now closer than ever. When Hermione took her apparition test, she passed, which she was very excited about. When Ron failed for leaving behind half an eyebrow, she comforted him. Another achievement Hermione had that year was learning non-verbal magic, and as always, she was the first in her class to do so. At the end of the term, the Battle of the Astronomy Tower took place. Harry made Hermione, Ron, and Ginny take the remaining liquid luck to ensure their safety. Hermione and Luna were watching Snape's office when Professor Flitwick came running down the hall, saying that Death Eaters had broken into the castle. Flitwick went into Snape's office, and Hermione and Luna heard a thud. Snape then came out, and he told them to tend to Flitwick, who had passed out. Snape then went to kill Dumbledore right after that. Afterward, Hermione felt awful. She was crying and she said, "I was so stupid, Harry. Oh, it's so obvious now. Snape must have stupefied Flitwick, but we didn't realize. We just let Snape go." Lupin told her that it wasn't her fault, and he said that had she not obeyed, he probably would have killed her and Luna as well. During Dumbledore's funeral, Hermione was comforted by Ron as she cried on his shoulder. Harry told them both that he was not coming back to Hogwarts, and that he was going to hunt Voldemort's Horcruxes. Hermione and Ron told him that he wasn't doing it alone.
You need us, Harry.
Before she left school, she summoned books about Horcruxes from Dumbledore's office to learn more about them and how to destroy them. That summer, Hermione, knowing that she was going on a dangerous mission, realized that her parents were at risk. To make sure they were safe, she modified her parents' memories to make them think that their names were Wendell and Monica Wilkins, and that their life's ambition was to move to Australia, which they had now done. This would make it much harder for Voldemort and his Death Eaters to track them. She made them think that they didn't have a daughter, so that if they did find them, they wouldn't be able to interrogate them about her or Harry, who she had told them quite a lot about. Doing this also ensured that if she died on their mission, they wouldn't know that they had a daughter, and they would continue to live a happy life. When Hermione talked about this to Ron and Harry, she began to cry, and Ron put his arm around her to make her feel better. Hermione also withdrew all of her savings in case they needed Muggle money. On top of that, she put an extension charm on one of her bags and packed everything that they would need in case they needed to make a quick escape. Hermione was part of the team to extract Harry from the Dursleys. She and 6 others used Polyjuice Potion to become Harry, so that the Death Eaters would not know which one was the real Harry. She flew with Kingsley Shacklebolt on a Thestral. They were followed by 5 Death Eaters. They injured 2 of them and might have killed another. Halfway through the chase, they saw Voldemort, but he vanished pretty quickly once he realized that Hermione wasn't the real Harry. Hermione hugged Harry as soon as she got back, but she was worried when she found out that Ron hadn't returned yet. When he finally did, she gave him an even bigger hug. Hermione stole the Polyjuice Potion that Mad-Eye had made right under Mrs. Weasley's nose in case they needed it for their mission. The new Minister for Magic, Rufus Scrimgeour, arrived at the Burrow to deal with Dumbledore's will. Dumbledore left Hermione a copy of a children's book called The Tales of Beedle the Bard. At Bill and Flair's wedding, she saw Victor Crumb. When Ron saw the two together, he quickly asked her if she wanted to dance, which made Hermione very happy. Crumb then asked the disguised Harry if they were together, and Harry replied saying, sort of. The celebration was stopped early when Death Eaters crashed the wedding. Hermione, Ron, and Harry disapparated out of there and ended up in London. Luckily, they had everything that they needed thanks to Hermione's extension charm on her bag. While they were in London, Hermione unknowingly triggered a tracking curse when she said Voldemort's name. This was set up by the Ministry and the Snatchers, knowing that anyone that says his name is most likely a threat to him and an ally of Harry. 2 Death Eaters showed up, and a fight unfolded until the Death Eaters were beaten. Hermione modified their memories so that they wouldn't remember seeing Ron to ensure the safety of his family. The 3 of them went to number 12 Grimmauld Place. During their stay there, Ron and Hermione fell asleep holding hands. While they were sleeping, their hands released, and when they woke up, their hands were resting next to each other. While they were there, they discovered that Dolores Umbridge had the locket Horcrux. They formed a plan to break into the Ministry, using the Polyjuice Potion that Hermione had stolen to make themselves Ministry workers. When they got there, Hermione got stuck with Umbridge and sat through unfair trials with her as she incriminated innocent Muggleborns. Harry attacked Umbridge as their Polyjuice Potion began to fade away, blowing their cover. Hermione grabbed the locket off of Umbridge, and they freed a ton of Muggleborns the Ministry had incriminated and told them to flee the country. After they met up with Ron, they fled the Ministry to go back to Grimmauld Place, but a Death Eater named Yaxley grabbed onto Hermione's arm, and they were forced to leave him at Grimmauld Place and disapparate into the woods. They were now unable to go back to Grimmauld Place, as it had been compromised.
I knew once you'd seen where we were, we couldn't stay, so...
They camped out and took turns holding the locket. The locket greatly affected Ron and made him jealous and angry. One night, this led to a big fight, and he decided to leave. He asked Hermione what she wanted to do, and not wanting to abandon Harry, she decided to stay.
Fine. I get it. I saw you two the other night.
Hermione screamed after him, trying to get him to come back, but it was no use. He had disapparated. Hermione cried for over a week after he left. There were many silent nights between Hermione and Harry because she was so sad, and Harry didn't know what to say to her. The two eventually decided to go to Godric's Hollow, thinking that they would find the Sword of Gryffindor there. There they stopped at the graveyard to see where Harry's parents were buried. Hermione added flowers to the grave in respect, and comforted Harry. The two went into Bathilda Bagshot's house, where they were attacked by Voldemort's snake Nagini. Harry was bitten by the snake and was passed out. Hermione took herself and Harry's passed out body to the Forest of Dean as she disapparated. While they stayed there, Harry arrived back with Ron one morning. Ron explained how he had found them.
And I heard it. A voice. Your voice, Hermione.
And what exactly did I say, may I ask?
My name. This tiny ball of light appeared. It floated toward me. The ball of light. Went right to my chest. Straight through me. Right here. I knew it was going to take me where I needed to go, so I disapparated.
Hermione was angry at Ron for a long time. The trio went to see Xenophilius Lovegood, where they learned the true meaning behind the book that Dumbledore had left for Hermione and all about the Deathly Hallows. Xenophilius betrayed them to save Luna, and Death Eaters came to the house. Hermione very smartly made sure that the Death Eaters saw Harry before they left, so that they wouldn't think that Xenophilius was lying. This way they wouldn't kill him or Luna. The three were again found through the tracking charm of saying Voldemort's name, and were taken to Malfoy Manor. When they got there, Bellatrix panicked when she saw the Sword of Gryffindor, as she thought it was in her vault. She locked the others up and tortured Hermione to find out where she had gotten it. Hermione screamed in pain as she used the Cruciatus curse on her. And later she cut the word Mudblood into her arm with a knife. When Harry and Ron came up to save her, Bellatrix held a knife to Hermione's throat to make them drop their wands. Dobby then rescued them and took them to Bill and Fleur's house, where he died from a knife Bellatrix had thrown.
Hermione, I have something in your bag. Hermione, help me!
The trio realized that they had to break into Gringotts. They devised a plan at Bill and Fleur's to make their move with the help of the goblin Griphook. Hermione used Polyjuice Potion to take the form of Bellatrix Lestrange. After they successfully got in and found the Horcrux, Griphook betrayed them. Hermione then came up with an idea to escape.
We can't just stand here. Who's got an idea?
It's not a brilliant one.
I've got something, but it's mad.
They rode the dragon out of Gringotts into safety. The three then returned to Hogwarts for the final battle. Hermione and Ron went down to the Chamber of Secrets and got Basilisk Fangs to destroy the remaining Horcruxes. Hermione thought that Ron was amazing to think of this idea and to be able to speak Parseltongue to get inside. While down there, Hermione destroyed the Horcrux that they had gotten from Gringotts. After that, the trio were in the Room of Requirement when Ron said, "Hang on a moment, we've forgotten someone." "Who?" "The house elves. They'll all be down in the kitchen, won't they?" "You mean we ought to get them fighting?" "No, I mean we should get them out. We don't want any more Dobbies, do we? We can't order them to die for us." At these words, Hermione flung herself on Ron, and the two had their first kiss. Ron kissed her so passionately that he lifted Hermione off of her feet. Later, they faced Malfoy and his cronies. Hermione narrowly dodged a killing curse and stunned Goyle. The room then went up in flames, and they narrowly escaped. This battle had many casualties. Hermione saw both Fred and Snape die right in front of her. During a break in the battle, Hermione comforted Ron, Ginny, and the rest of the Weasleys over the loss of Fred. Harry went to the Forbidden Forest to give himself up without talking to Hermione or anyone else, knowing that if he did so, it would be too hard to keep going. When Voldemort returned with Harry's dead body, Hermione was deeply upset. Neville Longbottom then stepped forward, and the battle resumed. Hermione fought Bellatrix with the help of Ginny and Luna until Mrs. Weasley took over and killed her. Harry then revealed himself to be alive and defeated Voldemort. Hermione and Ron were the first ones to reach him and hug him after the fight was finally over. After everything calmed down, Hermione went to Australia to find her parents and restore their memories. The family was reunited and moved back to England. Hermione went back to Hogwarts for her final year to finish her schooling, even though Ron and Harry did not. Hermione and Ron's relationship continued to blossom, and eventually the two got married. They had 2 children named Rose and Hugo. Hermione was also made the godmother of Harry and Ginny's son, James. Because of her heroism, Hermione was featured on a chocolate frog card that represents famous witches and wizards. She eventually started a career at the Ministry of Magic, in the Department for the Regulation and Control for Magical Creatures. She continued her work with SPEW, working for the rights of underprivileged non-humans such as house elves and any other creatures. She later went on to assist the new Minister for Magic, Kingsley Shacklebolt, as the deputy head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. They worked together to eradicate any laws that were in favor of purebloods. While some consider the cursed child to be canon and others don't, I feel that I have to add that Hermione was made Minister for Magic in the book. Hermione stayed close with all of her friends and saw them on a regular basis. Hermione offers so much to the table, whether it be her amazing intelligence, her badass skills, how kind she is to everyone around her, or the way that she cares about and stands up for what's important to her. She is the full package and one of the best parts of the series. She taught Harry so much and helped him throughout his journey. Without Hermione, Harry would have never been able to complete his mission. She is a true hero and will always have a place in our hearts. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button to help grow the channel. You can follow me on social media. Links are in the description, and look out for more great videos on the way.